It was a quiet morning, the kind that made Officer Sarah Collins feel like the world was holding its breath. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a golden glow over the sleepy town of Willow Creek. Sarah and her canine partner, Rex, a fierce yet loyal German shepherd, were on their usual patrol. But this day would be anything but routine. As Sarah stepped out of her cruiser to investigate a suspicious vehicle, she had no idea that her life was about to hang in the balance, and that Rex would make a choice no one could have predicted. Rex's frantic barking echoed through the empty street, but there was no immediate response. The town of Willow Creek had always been a quiet one, where crime was rare and the night shifts were often uneventful. But tonight was different. Sarah's breaths came in shallow gasps as she lay on the pavement, her body refusing to respond. The pain in her chest had spread, a fire raging through her veins. She tried to move her fingers, to reach for the radio clipped to her shoulder, but even that simple action felt impossible. Inside the cruiser, Rex's training warred with his instincts. He had been conditioned to remain in the vehicle until commanded otherwise, but Sarah wasn't commanding him. She wasn't moving. He could hear her heartbeat, erratic, weak. The sounds of her distress set his mind into overdrive. With a determined growl, Rex turned his attention to the window. He leapt up, pressing his paws against the glass, his nails scratching desperately. But the doors were locked. He whined, his powerful jaws clenching in frustration. Then he remembered the button. Rex had seen Sarah press the unlock button hundreds of times. He didn't understand the mechanics of it, but he knew where it was. He lunged at the door panel, his paw slamming down on the controls. The lock clicked open. Wasting no time, Rex pushed the door open with his snout and leapt onto the pavement. He rushed to Sarah's side, his nose nudging her arm, licking her face, anything to stir her awake. But she barely responded. He whined again, pacing around her body before making a decision. He had seen Sarah use her radio before. He had heard the voices of other officers come through, their commands firm, their words filled with authority. He lowered his head, nudging the radio clipped to Sarah's shoulder. His sharp teeth carefully bit down on the device, pressing the button. A burst of static filled the air before a voice crackled through. "Officer Collins, do you copy?" Rex barked, the sound sharp and urgent. Another burst of static. "Collins, report your status." Another bark, more insistent this time. Silence followed for a moment. Then, "All units, possible officer down. Dispatching ambulance and nearest patrol to last known location." Rex whined, nuzzling Sarah's face once more. Her lips moved slightly, a barely audible whisper escaping. "Good boy." He barked again, staying close, his ears perked for the sound of approaching sirens. Minutes stretched like hours, but then, finally, the distant wail of an ambulance and the roar of an approaching squad car filled the night. Red and blue lights bathed the street in an urgent glow. Officer Jake Reynolds was the first on scene. He skidded to a stop, leaping from his vehicle with his hand already on his radio. "I've got eyes on Collins. She's down. Medical, hurry!" He barely had time to process what had happened before Rex was at his side, nudging his hand, then turning back to Sarah as if urging him to move faster. Jake knelt beside her, pressing 2 fingers to her neck. "She's got a pulse, but it's weak." He turned his radio on. "Paramedics, we need an AED and oxygen. She's barely breathing." Rex let out a low whine as he nudged Sarah's hand, her fingers twitching slightly in response. The ambulance screeched to a halt, and paramedics rushed out, equipment in hand. They worked quickly, administering oxygen and setting up the defibrillator. "Sarah, stay with us," one of them murmured as they attached the pads to her chest. "Charging to 200 clear." The jolt made her body twitch, but she didn't wake. Rex whimpered, pacing in tight circles. "Charging to 300 clear." Another jolt. A pause. Then the monitor beeped steadily. "She's stabilizing," one of the medics said with relief. "We need to get her to the hospital now." They lifted Sarah onto a stretcher, securing her for transport. As they loaded her into the ambulance, Rex attempted to jump in, but Jake caught his collar gently. "Hold on, buddy. You can't ride with her." Rex growled softly, his eyes never leaving Sarah as the ambulance doors shut. Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair. "All right, come on, we'll follow." He opened the passenger door of his cruiser, and Rex, sensing the urgency, hopped in. The drive to the hospital was tense. Jake kept glancing at Rex, who sat stiffly in the seat, his body trembling with anticipation. When they arrived, Rex leapt out the moment the door opened, but hospital staff held him back at the entrance. "I'm sorry, but he can't come inside," a nurse explained sympathetically. Jake sighed and sat on the curb, patting the spot beside him. "Come on, Rex. We'll wait." The K-9 hesitated, his eyes locked on the hospital doors, but finally, he sat beside Jake, his ears perked. He would wait. Hours passed. The sky began to lighten with the first hints of dawn. Finally, a doctor stepped outside, scanning the area before his eyes landed on Jake and Rex. "She's awake," he said with a smile. Rex barked, his tail wagging furiously. "She's asking for him," the doctor added. Jake grinned, standing up. "You heard the man. Let's go." The hospital staff made an exception that morning. They led Rex down the hall to Sarah's room, where she lay, pale but smiling weakly. The moment Rex saw her, he let out a happy whine and jumped onto the bed, nuzzling her face with uncontained relief. "Hey, buddy," she whispered, her hand weakly reaching up to stroke his fur. "You saved my life." Rex licked her cheek, his tail wagging so hard that it thumped against the bed. Jake leaned against the doorframe, watching with a smirk. "Looks like you owe him a steak dinner." Sarah let out a weak chuckle. "Steak and all the belly rubs he wants." Rex gave a contented sigh, settling down beside her on the bed, his head resting near her shoulder. He had done his job. He had saved his partner. And now, he would keep watch until she was ready to come home. With a sudden burst of determination, Rex lunged at the partition, his powerful body slamming against the metal. Again and again, he threw himself at the barrier, his barks growing more desperate. Finally, with one last forceful push, the latch gave way, and the door swung open. Rex leaped out, his paws hitting the ground with a thud. He raced to Sarah's side, nuzzling her face and licking her cheek. When she didn't respond, he let out a series of sharp, piercing barks that echoed through the empty streets. A passing jogger heard the commotion and rushed over, phone in hand. "I need an ambulance." "There's an officer down," she shouted into the phone, her voice trembling. Rex stayed by Sarah's side, his body pressed against hers as if trying to keep her warm. He barked at the jogger, urging her to hurry, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. When the paramedics arrived, they found Rex standing guard over Sarah, his tail stiff, his gaze unwavering. He refused to leave her side, even as they loaded her into the ambulance. One of the EMTs, moved by the dog's loyalty, allowed Rex to ride with them to the hospital. At the hospital, Sarah was rushed into surgery. Rex waited outside the operating room, his ears perked, his body tense. Hours passed, but he didn't move, not even when hospital staff offered him food and water. Finally, the surgeon emerged, a tired but relieved smile on her face. "She's going to be okay," she said, crouching to pat Rex's head. "You saved her life, buddy." When Sarah woke up, the first thing she saw was Rex's face, his warm brown eyes filled with relief. She reached out a trembling hand to stroke his fur, tears streaming down her face. "You're my hero, Rex," she whispered. Rex rested his head gently on Sarah's bed, his body stretched out beside her. The room was dimly lit, the only sound coming from the steady beeping of the heart monitor. Nurses walked in and out, checking on Sarah, but Rex never moved more than a few inches away. A soft knock at the door made Rex lift his head. Sarah's partner, Officer Daniels, stepped in, his uniform slightly wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. He had spent the last few hours coordinating with the department, trying to find out who had attacked Sarah. "Hey, partner," Daniels said softly, approaching the bed. He gave Rex a small scratch behind the ears before turning his attention to Sarah. "You scared the hell out of us. You know that?" Sarah managed a weak smile. "I scared myself," she murmured, her voice hoarse. She reached for Rex, her fingers tangling in his fur. "But Rex, he saved me." Daniels nodded. "He sure did. The department's already talking about giving him a medal." He sighed, rubbing his temples. We're going to find out who did this. I promise you." Sarah swallowed hard, memories of the attack flashing through her mind. The alley, the shadowy figure, the sudden sharp pain before everything went black. "Did they get away?" she asked, gripping the sheets tightly. Daniels hesitated. "For now, but we have some leads. And trust me, we're not going to stop until we catch them." Rex let out a low growl, as if understanding the weight of Daniel's words. Sarah rubbed his head reassuringly. Over the next few days, Sarah slowly regained her strength. She was still weak, her body sore, but her determination remained unshaken. Rex remained her constant companion, refusing to leave her side even for a moment. Word of Rex's heroic act spread quickly. The news ran stories about the loyal police dog who had saved his handler, and soon strangers were sending gifts and letters addressed to Rex. Sarah chuckled as she sorted through them. "Looks like you've got a fan club, buddy," she teased, scratching his ears. One letter in particular caught her eye. It was from a young girl named Emily, whose father had been a K-9 officer. "Dear Officer Rex," it read, "you are the bravest dog ever. My daddy was a police officer too, and he had a dog like you. He said K-9s are heroes. I think you're a hero too. Love, Emily." Sarah blinked back tears, hugging the letter to her chest. "You hear that, Rex? You're a hero." Rex simply wagged his tail, pressing his nose against her hand. As soon as she was discharged, Sarah insisted on returning to work, despite Daniel's protests. "You need rest," he argued as they walked into the precinct. "I need to be here," Sarah countered. "Whoever did this is still out there." The captain greeted her warmly, giving Rex a well-earned pat on the head. "Glad to have you back, Officer Grant." "And you too, Rex?" Sarah sat at her desk, reviewing reports from the night she was attacked. Something wasn't adding up. "The suspect knew I was there," she muttered to Daniels. Daniels frowned. "You think it was planned?" Sarah nodded. "I do. And I think we're dealing with more than just a random attack." Rex let out a soft bark, as if agreeing. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah continued investigating. Then, one night, a break in the case came when a security camera caught the suspect's face. Sarah stared at the screen. "It's him." Daniels grabbed his radio. "All units, we have a suspect." The team moved fast. Within hours, they tracked the suspect to an abandoned warehouse. Sarah, despite her injuries, insisted on leading the team, with Rex by her side. As they moved in, Rex's ears perked up. He let out a low growl. "He's close," Sarah whispered. A noise came from behind the crates. Then in a flash, the suspect bolted. "Rex, go!" Sarah commanded. Rex launched forward, chasing the man through the warehouse. The suspect tried to climb a fence, but Rex leaped, grabbing onto his sleeve and dragging him down. Officers swarmed in, securing the arrest. Sarah approached, her heart pounding. "We got him," Daniel said, gripping the suspect's wrists. Sarah exhaled in relief, kneeling beside Rex. "Good boy," she murmured, wrapping her arms around him. As the suspect was taken away, Sarah looked at Rex, pride swelling in her chest. "You're not just my hero, Rex. You're everyone's hero." This story isn't just about a K-9 saving his partner. It's about the unbreakable bond between humans and animals. It's about loyalty, courage, and the lengths we'll go to protect those we love. Rex didn't just follow his training. He followed his heart. And in doing so, he gave Sarah a second chance at life. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments below. Have you ever witnessed the incredible bond between a K-9 and their handler? How do you think we can better support our law enforcement officers and their four-legged partners? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell for more inspiring stories of courage, loyalty, and love. Because sometimes heroes don't wear capes, they wear fur and a badge.